And we are back here once again with another episode of the Iron Man podcast, episode 527, with Jesse Blaze Snider. Actually, goes
How's it
by
going?
Black Light District Studios. What's up, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, man. I'm just, boots on the ground, the one man promotion arm of Blacklight District Studios, and I've been doing this for a very long time, making comics. But I'm a pro. I've worked for Marvel and DC and Disney Pixar and the Muppets, and I've worked on all this big IP and shit. But it's a completely different thing doing
Mhm.
it homegrown, getting out to people who are actually reading the books. I'm a
Mhm.
long-term comic reader and an educated one. And one of the craziest pieces of my education was that the actual readership of comics is probably something like 20% of the print run for most books because of the amount of books that sit on the store shelves, stay into a plastic backboard, and never get read, get looked at, get bought as collector's items. Like, I mean, I have friends who literally just buy every single first issue that comes out and it just goes into a box just in case it ends up being worth something. And they end up
Mhm.
making money, like as a profitability sort of thing, as an investment. And lots of people do that. And the amount of people who are the tastemakers, who are paying attention to the stories, who appreciate the medium for the medium, who are enjoying the medium because they feel that it is the greatest medium known to man. Like I know,
Mhm.
I could have went into film if I wanted to. It was like this crazy misnomer. I started to realize all of a sudden that people were under the impression that I chose comic books because like I didn't think I could do the other thing. Like I have no fucking interest in movies, like and actors and all this other shit. Like, I'm interested in comedy movies. I would make comedy movies one day or write those things. Because
Mhm.
I think there's just not enough great comedies out there. But comic books and the turn page, your reader being involved in the process of reading, in a novel,
Mhm.
you read the book, it starts to get really exciting, and then you turn the page and there's a bunch more words that you have to read until you get to the part where you go right. And in a movie they do it for you. It starts to get exciting and then all of a sudden edit. But in a
Yeah.
comic book, if it's really being done well by people who understand the beauty of the medium,
Mhm.
then that reveal, that exciting moment is on a turn page. And the audience, they do the deed. They shoot themselves. They kill the character. They reveal it to themselves. And being involved in that process, I mean, I can remember so many page turns for me that were like, you know, at various times when I read a comic, the one that I always remember because I just like called my friend Aaron immediately. He and I talk about it a bunch of times. I was reading a miniseries I fucking hated, really, the Siege miniseries. And in issue 3, you turn the page and Ares, who had just been sold to me in this amazing Michael Avon Oeming miniseries that he wrote, it was really, really good. And Ares was one of my new favorite characters. I really wanted to see more things done with him because I was really interested. And I
Mhm.
turned the page, and the Sentry, one of my other more recent favorite characters, rips Ares in half. And I just literally, ah! and like I did it to myself.
Mhm.
And that part, the audience's participation in the storytelling process by turning pages and
Yeah.
being able to have the benefit of a picture worth 1,000 words and be able to just see that image and know what happened. That is just what makes comic books the best medium. And, you can do anything. It's an unlimited budget. Whatever you can imagine, you can do. You don't have to think about the types of things you have to think about when you write television, when you write films, but you do have to think about your audience because they are participating in the experience with you. And I mean, that's really been the downfall of the industry right now. You've got people who aren't really fans of the medium for what it is, and they're just treating it like it's any other medium. And largely, they're also treating it like it's a domain of children's work. They don't expect much from it. It's not supposed to be fucking Shakespeare. It's comic books, and they're fucking idiots. Like it's like the medium is there to be respected and done right and better and better. And the medium been maturing and maturing
Mhm.
and maturing for a long time into a wonderful place. And then all of a sudden, everybody started to go, hey, this shit's worth money. And then the people at the tippy top started to take a look at things. And then all of a sudden, all these different things started to get put into place, and different bits of, we want to try this and we want to try that. Things that were unnatural, that weren't organically taking place, but were things that were initiatives from the corporate dictates. And then when you got this whole cultural terraforming thing that we got going on in the form of DEI, which is literally a program meant to divide our society and get us all fucked up. They've done this in other places around the world. This is why people say no, never communism, because in other places, the financial powers have divided up the population, had them fighting about a whole bunch of petty things, whether it was their skin tone or their sex or their sexuality. And this is like a playbook. This is a political playbook. And every bleeding heart liberal like myself, I'm a much more liberal-minded type person, but they've taken liberal ideals and they've taken them beyond the point where they needed to be, to a point of poking people and waving it in everybody's face, and ultimately creating a class of people, disempowered people, who can't do anything unless the big old government comes in and saves us. And the government cannot be trusted to do shit. The Democratic Party, I've voted Democrat for most of my life. I have watched this thing. I'm a 41-year-old man. I'm telling you guys, they are in the pockets of corporate America. They don't do anything that hurts their donors. And it's just that simple. And all of them are bought across the board. I know a lot of people think that Trump, might be different. And, there's some signs that say maybe it'll be different. And, I hope it will be. But at the end of the day, this disingenuous force Biden on us when he's clearly can't even think straight anymore. And he's a corporate Democrat who is freaking gnarly on so many levels, from sniffing little girls to freaking the ridiculous things that he's said about black people at various points in his career when it didn't freaking matter for him to say that thing. Now it matters. So he's saying something else. But he's just like Hillary. She changed her stance on gays and gay marriage when it was fucking convenient, when all of a sudden that was the thing to do, because she's a corporate shill. And she does whatever the party wants her to do. They're just fucking mouthpieces for this apparatus. I'm a Russell Brand sort of, political pundit. I'm not sitting here going, hey, go right or go left. Dude, this system is broken. And we need to make new ones, and we need to stand up for the important things that matter to all of us, like cleaning our water, cleaning our oceans, getting the little plastic microbeads out of our sperm and raising our fucking sperm count so the human race doesn't die off because we've poisoned ourselves so badly while we were focused on climate change, because that was a convenient place for us to have our attention, where they could make a whole summit and a whole bunch of things where money could be funneled in, and they could steal some of that money, and they could do nothing to actually prevent the planet from being exposed to all of this disgusting pollution, which is what we were focused on when I was a kid. But then they moved it. They moved the fence. They changed the conversation. And this is what they do. It's a very tricky landscape that we're living in. And I really feel like I'm here to train the geeks to talk about this the right way, so that no one can shut them down, because we are right. They are wrong. And they are being led like rats by a terrible Pied Piper off a cliff. And we all need to come together and get real about who the enemy is.
Right.
And, and it's a very, very tiny group of people. This idea of like, oh, yeah, the white man was bad. And then they punched me. Like, I wasn't in charge of the freaking BlackRock and Vanguards of the world. I'm not doing any of this shit. I got dropped from my freaking agency and couldn't get jobs because I was a white guy. And all of a sudden I wasn't popular in Hollywood. My brother, who's a brilliant director, got basically stuck in, like, he was frozen. He was beloved. He was talented. They just kept taking meetings with him and never would give him the work. And nobody would even tell him. And finally, one day he forced somebody. He was like, what the hell's going on? And they were like, you're a white guy. And that is it. We've literally gone full circle around to racism again in the name of this new thing. And it's awful, because the Black and Hispanic and Indian people and all these women and Asian people who are running this shit, their bosses are fucking white guys. It's like, it's maddening.
I wanted to ask you this before we go down that road, because just in case you come on second appearances or third appearances, people will know what your origin story is. You said you always grew up with comic books. What was the first ones you ever had? Marvel and DC stuff, or you
Well,
got it from a box of?
my dad was a really big comic book fan. But like
Okay.
he was he wasn't like obsessive. He was a guy who, when he happened to be in a store, he'd pick up some books that he liked. He liked the Hulk a lot. My
Mhm.
first Hulk comic that I did for Marvel, I dedicated it to him because my
Oh,
love
that's
of the Hulk
awesome. Okay.
totally came from him. Yeah, if you read the collected version of it in Savage Hulk Volume
Mhm.
2, they took away my tribute to my dad, which was lame. But if you get the individual issue, it says dedicated to
Mhm.
D. Snider, and that was apt because my love of comics came from him turning me on to them. So he had like bought an issue of Thing for me, an early one where he's fighting like the Sphinx, and I was like 11 or 12, and it was all like the 90s comics, the big like Youngblood and Image, Boom, and all that shit, and cards. I was really into the cards. I wanted to be an artist, so I liked the cards. I liked
Mhm.
copying the images and some of the teams, and I liked the information. I'm very high functioning autistic, on the spectrum somewhere, and absorbing all the teams and all the different things. I really enjoyed that. But I didn't really like to read at the time. I didn't read much. And my dad got me a subscription to Spider-Man, and I would like read his dialogue, but like none of the other dialogue. I would never read the square balloons, kind of thing. I was very limited. But I got into a book called The Savage Dragon because in the mini series that leads into the ongoing that is The Savage Dragon that still goes to this day, he fought Bedrock, who was a character from Youngblood, who I would always read Bedrock's dialogue because he was just a goofball and he was always saying silly things. So Bedrock's like my favorite character because he's just stupid. And I see him show up in The Savage Dragon. So I'm like, oh, I'll buy this so I can read Bedrock. And in that issue of Savage Dragon, the Savage Dragon just made fun of Bedrock the entire issue. He just like he just roasted him.
Mhm.
He like belittled my character for being so stupid and small in the ways that he was. Everything that I kind of liked about him because I was just
Mhm.
stupidly reading comics at the time. He just like, but oh my god, my character is so small. I'm like, Savage Dragon, you're my new favorite character. So that was it. I started actually reading comics. I read that issue cover to cover. I went back, I got the other issues of Savage Dragon. And for years, I read Savage Dragon exclusively. And I would go to the comic book store every month and I would get a new issue of Savage Dragon. The first 75 issues of that book, I think, are some of the greatest funny books ever made. I recommend buying them in their original form and not the trade paperbacks so that you can read the letters column because Eric Larson's love of comic books is just there on display the whole
Mhm.
time, just like talking about artists that he loves and little pet peeves that he has about lazy things that different artists did. And it just helped me to understand the medium. So that later, when I was actually well, I love comics. So if I'm going to be a writer, maybe I should write comics. I already kind of knew a lot about what that process was and how to do it well because Eric was really like a student of the medium, and I gained that love with him when I turned 15 or 16, I guess. I got a job at 7-Eleven, and
Oh,
at the time
Christ. Oh, shoot.
they used to sell
Were you always
a
saying "Thank you, come again"?
yeah, absolutely. And oh, dude, I used to have the chili hot dogs all the time, and because they were free. And then,
Yeah,
like at a
yeah.
certain point, I started walking into work, and as soon as I would smell them, it would just make me sick. I was like, oh god, it's like the smell would just like, oh god. Okay. But on the racks, they
Mhm.
had comic books there,
Mhm.
Marvel and DC, like along the newspapers and shit, and Deadpool was on the rack, and I had heard that it was funny. I had heard from some friends that it was a funny comic book, and maybe I should check it out because that's why I liked Savage Dragon because it had a good sense of humor about it. And I picked up Deadpool, just sort of like on breaks. I would like bring it into the back room and read it and put it back, kind of thing. And I got super into Joe Kelly's Deadpool run, and then Joe Kelly's Deadpool run, which is the run that the movies are based on. The reason why there is a fan base for Deadpool is because of me and people like me who fucking championed that book and kept that book going. I mean, like as soon as I got into that book, like that was my new favorite thing. I mean, what a cool character he was. Essentially, he was a Muppet superhero. He wanted to do better, but he just couldn't get it right because he was a fuck up, and it's just and hilarity ensued. But he really
Mhm.
wanted to do better and be better, and he had a charming personality, and you could put him through anything. I just loved that character, And then love Joe Kelly as a writer too. That turned me on to him. He's one of my favorite writers. And Joe Kelly's a friend these days, which is really weird and surreal. For me as a fan, because he was like one of the first people that I was like, oh, this guy's great. And then that was it for me, because once I was reading Deadpool, I was exposed to the ads. And they were advertising the Marvel Knights run, which was when Joe Quesada first kind of got his foothold in at Marvel. And Joe did a lot of things right, at least in terms of helping to get a lot of great stories and have a renaissance of storytelling that went on at Marvel for a while before it kind of came apart at the seams. But I was bailing out when it started to fall apart. I was dealing with things in my own life, and I kind of started to like fade out of it. Siege was one of the last things I think I read.
I wanted to ask you, because your career, you said before, when you started the show, you worked at Marvel, you worked at DC, you said you worked at Boom as well. So you worked for the mainstream. So unlike other people that were just basically fans of comics and they made their own as an indie, you had mainstream exposure. I'll ask you this.
My first gig was for Marvel.
And I'll ask you this. This will be very important for people that are going to watch this later on. Is being a part of the mainstream as big as everyone makes it out to be? Now that you look back on it, all the stuff you did work on there, did it impact how people view your work now, that they're just going to support you just because you were a part of it?
No. There's so many different things. One, in order to have any sort of something from that, you really need to be somebody that they're showing off. It was very difficult to be shown off at that company, at any of those companies. They had no desire to use to make stars out of their people. They didn't want you to have the power. They wanted to have the power. The classic example I use is DC Comics didn't give Jeff Johns any fucking power or good assignments until he left and went to Marvel and wrote an Avengers run. And then they went, oh, wait, not so fast. But that's what he had to do to get them to actually fucking snap to and give him the jobs and give him the respect that he deserved. They don't want to give anybody any fucking respect. They want to control the narrative. Most of the editors want to be writers, and even the ones who don't, they want to be able to control what's going on. They're the quiet hand controlling all the stories. It takes a lot for you have to have a lot of success in your career in order for it to translate into you being able to dictate any terms creatively. Once at a certain point, you'll become part of that group that gets invited to the creative summit or whatever it might be. But that's another level of the thing. And they don't care about you. The people at the top who ultimately make the decisions about what's going on, you're not dealing with them. You're dealing with their underlings. You're dealing with their editors who work for them. You don't know how many times I've worked with an editor. You don't know how many times my brother has worked with a producer, putting together a whole fucking thing. And then, sorry, man, my boss says I have to use this other person. Right? Right now, we're living in a whole new world, though, because they want to use every single person who they hire as a token for promotion in this new DEI world. So everybody, you're not a writer anymore. You're a black writer. You're a gay writer. You're a lady writer. You're a Hispanic writer. You're a Muslim writer. And it's so fucking unfortunate because it sends a fundamental message to everyone that matters and is necessary for empathy to be had in order for other people's experiences to be imagined and executed. And that is some fucking dangerous bullshit right there. I did not need to be black to love Wesley Snipes. Not just in Blade, but in Demolition Man, where I wanted to fucking look like him, his style and how he fucking acted. I didn't see him as a black guy. I saw him as the fucking coolest guy I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, dude, this guy's so fucking cool.
Yeah, that's what I told you on that's what I told you on Vaughn Coleman's 900 special stream where I met you at. I don't know where people got that from, that you had to look like the main character in order to like them. That I never thought that growing up. I had to be told that later on. That was never a thing that ever happened. Like, that's a recent thing. That had never happened ever.
Yeah. I mean, I have deep connections to certain characters that have certain attributes that resonate with me. And I would tell you that it wouldn't matter what color they were. It wouldn't matter if they were gay. It wouldn't matter anything. It's a very specific thing that I'm drawn to with a character like Wally West and Dick Grayson. Both of them are trying to live up to a bar that has been set by their predecessor. My father's a rock star. He's somebody who's been very successful. And I want to honor him as a creative person and demonstrate that, it runs in the family and on it goes kind of thing. And that having great meaning to me, I care about those characters for that reason. Similarly, a character who is not white, Black Panther. I love Black Panther because he's a king. And, the idea of him like sort of being on the Avengers is you always have to do the right thing. But the idea of him being a king means he always has to do the right thing for his people first. And the idea that he has this great responsibility where he has to balance doing what is right for his people because that he's a fucking king and doing the right thing overall for the world because he's a hero. I love that. I love, and it doesn't, you don't have to be a black king. You can be a white, any king in that situation of trying to balance his heroics with his duty. That's great shit. That's the stuff that makes you love a character. Colossus, Colossus didn't seem like me to me when I was reading Colossus. He was from Russia. So I viewed him not as like me, even though he was. It's so funny now. Everybody's white. There's so many different cultures that can, make up the conglomeration of the very unique cultures with unique histories and unique sort of stories of how they ended up coming here, why they ended up coming here, things that they were leaving from, whether it was war or poverty or, there's different stories for all these people. And we forget all this shit. But he loved his little sister, Ileana, and he had left her home. And he was an artist, even though he was this big, strong man. And I like understood that it's because I was a soft guy. I was more of an artist, but I was trying to portray myself as strong because I knew I had to be a man. Like I'm more of a non-binary is probably like, if you're putting me on that stupid list, but I don't believe in identifying myself that way. Meanwhile, peers of mine, other writer friends, they're gay, they're bi, they're all. I'm actually on that spectrum. I've always been on that spectrum, and I've always been very pro-gay rights and stuff, and everybody be able to do whatever they want to do. But this isn't the rights that we wanted. This isn't the rights that the community of people who are different wanted. We wanted everybody to just fucking get over it and accept us, for who we were, and stay out of our fucking business and stop trying to, legislate shit that would affect, anybody's freedom to do whatever the fuck they want to do, as long as they're not hurting anybody. This other thing that we've got going on is something where it's waving the dick in the faces of the Puritans and the super Christian people. And like, that's not cool, man. Like they're not comfortable with this. And that's all right. We're down to respect other people's, whatever they want to do with their dicks, they can. And the more you start waving yours in front of them, look at all my freedom. I'm gonna make all your kids gay. Like, oh my God. Like, yo.
Because doesn't that confirm what they're already thinking?
Yes.
At that point, it already confirms what they were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're telling them that everything they were worried about is true.
So
it's so like they're doing it on Doctor Who right now. It's so silly. It's such terrible representation. Good representation gives an audience empathy for a journey that might not be their own. Bad representation aggravates people. And that is what the majority of the representation that we have going on is doing right now. It's just kind of annoying people. They're feeling lectured and they're feeling like, they're being talked down to and being told that they need to believe a certain thing and think a certain way or else they're persona non grata. And dude, we can't do that. Like my book, Fucking for Our Future. And, I just did a ridiculous song with Dilf USA called We Want Some Pussy. I didn't write it. It's Two Live Crew. It's like the super sexist song that Two Live Crew did in the 80s. And we did a mashup with it to AC/DC's TNT. It's really great. And we did a really funny video about it. And look, if somebody wants to just like take everything at face value, they could tear it apart as sexist and all these things and blah, blah, blah. But they'd be wrong because at the heart of this is an artist and it's me and I'm not sexist. And I did this with all sorts of sort of undermining things. I think that song is sexist. And that's why I kind of made fun of it in a lot of different ways with a little chant that we do at the end where, what do you want? Pussy. When do we want it? Meow. And we made a music video where I'm an old guy looking for pussy, which I'm saying the message is, this is a passé approach to looking for love, to be so aggro and like over the top sexualized. But at the same time, it's a venting of sexual energy that exists and is okay. It's okay for people to have an outlet for a celebration of sex in a completely ridiculous, over the top, imaginative, and kind of crazy way. That's all right. Outlets for things are good. Hard music and violent video games, I believe, are currently being used as a therapeutic tool by an entire generation, multiple generations of people now, to get over past fucking crazy experiences that they've had in wars and stuff. When you really start to study the subject of reincarnation, dude, the evidence is insane. And it's just, you just got to look into it a little bit and you'll find things that'll just like blow your damn mind. And then when you start to study things like hermeticism and whatever else, and you realize, energy it never dies. And this is actually a conscious world. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The idea for both. Idea comes before form. So what happens? We're in the form. What do we go back to? We go back to the idea. And the idea, it's learning and growing. And there's been a lot of trauma on planet Earth. There's been a lot of wars. There's been a lot of rape. There's been a lot of incest and terrible things.
Yeah.
This shit has to be worked out. And, people are working it out through video games, and they're working it out through music and through comic books and all these things.
Well,
and
tackle on that thing that you had just said. A lot of people think that people are very aggressive when they play a video game and they shoot. Let's say, example, Call of Duty. So people think if you shoot people in Call of Duty, that'll make you some sort of like crazy mass murderer. Actually, come to find out, none of that does anything. It doesn't. It's a myth. It's literally
and it's more of an outlet. It's more of an outlet than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I do a lot of. I've become rather spirit. I don't like the word spiritual because there's so many like things like keyed into
perspectives
it.
you opened up.
There is a bridge between science and spirituality that if you just study and understand what is really going on here, this virtual reality that we are living in, where you can actually pierce the veil and get what's going on, because we're in this like sort of pressure system with different energies. We're handing energies off to people, and momentum is picking up in relationships. You have a disagreement with a friend, you don't say anything. 6 months later, all of a sudden it comes out, and it's really bad because they've been holding on to it for 6 months, and they've been holding on to it for 6 months. But this is all energy. If you start to really learn and study energy and understand how those things are going, you can make choices that will save you, from these things. We are not taught anything about our reality the way it actually is. And, we're taught about it in a way that works for capitalism. And we have grown smart enough that capitalism really shouldn't be the way anymore, because the technology that we have been suppressing for the past 40 years or more, just like things recently over 40 years, like there's 4,600 top secret patents that the US government went top secret, stop talking about this, stop doing it. And most of them are energy things that will give us free energy, free lights, free travel. There is so much stuff. When we decide to start thinking communally and start changing the world and make it something where, our political organizations, our governments are actually designed just to organize things so that things can be really nice for all of the humans to have a nice time, and not this system where they're supporting the people who are turning us into slaves. Debt slaves, in fact. It's just an absurd system. And you have to look and study so many different things in order to really break open what is going on, how it's been able to go on like this for so long. Because most people are just, I was told my daughter today, I was like kind of apologizing to her for occasionally like reading into something that she does and like assuming, worse than it is, and I said, parents are just kids raising kids. And each generation are just kids who grew up accepting what the previous generation handed them. And we just assume that, well, if it could have been changed, it would have been changed, or maybe it's in the process of being changed, and clearly somebody's thought of this by now, and like it's being worked on, and oh, that'll change because I know, and since I know, obviously other people know, and that'll change.
Yeah.
And then you wait, and you wait, and nothing changes.
Yeah.
And you go, oh shit, this is not a problem, it's a feature of the system. These are purposeful choices that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the thing I said, on my podcast, the past like 2 weeks, I said, I'm done talking about this, defending geeks for being sexist or, like it's bullshit. Their fucking representation is bullshit. These women are not great women being represented. They're not doing them justice. They're not doing justice to the gays. They're not doing justice to the blacks. Everybody's becoming a fucking tokenization. Everybody is one note. They're ruining all of the stuff because of this blanket DEI initiative, and they don't know how to be creative people because they are politically motivated and not creatively motivated and not audience motivated. And a motivation for your audience to get something out of your reading or entertainment experience, dude, that is paramount for making great shit. I mean, it's very, very rare that anybody who doesn't think that way succeeds.
I want to ask you, since you've been in the indie space for a while, what do you think holds indie creators back from having like campaigns fulfilled or not getting to where they want to be? Because you've been able to get where you want it to be for a while at this point. You said you've been doing it for a while. So is there any advice you could offer to anybody to when they're just doing this to kind of have more success the way you've had?
Well, I mean, I don't consider what I've done so far a success. I mean, this book that I have right here, Fucking for a Future, we're at like $8,000 right now. If we don't make $15,000, I can't pay for the entire book and pay me and Steve our normal page rates. So calculating what he gets paid per page and calculating what I get paid per page, paying our colorists who do the covers, and paying, just paying us like what we would get paid if we were working at Marvel. We can't get paid what we deserve. And that's not even what we deserve. That's what Marvel's willing to pay us unless we make 15 grand. So, I mean, it's a small pool of people though. And, 800 people, 600 to 800 people were regularly making like $70,000 for this company, Merck Publishing, that I was working for a moment. And I got very aggravated by them and their business practices. They're the same type of indie comics people. The successful people are largely unscrupulous businessmen who don't give a fuck about the audience. The people who care about the audience put a lot into it, spend a lot of money, end up just losing their shorts, put a lot of time into it like I do. I mean, like if you're paying me for my time that I put into this Kickstarter and all these things, $15,000 doesn't even begin to cover it. I mean, it's crazy. I'm a working professional and I have jobs and I do the jobs and I get paid and that's how I pay my bills. So just putting in a shitload of hours and hours and hours and not knowing if I'm actually going to get that money back. I need to make $100,000 on that campaign. $100,000 will help me to stabilize myself so that I can eat and I'm not worried about paying my bills for a moment. And then that will give me a moment to pay for the coloring of the next book that we're doing, pay for the advertising that we're going to be putting out for that so I can pre-do that, do a couple of the things, get a couple extra covers from a couple people, and I don't have to ask them for favors. I can just pay them to do it, and I can start to be a part of the comics economy. Right now, Todd Blackwood did a variant cover for us. He did it for free. He's my buddy. We're hoping we'll pay him something, somewhere down the line when we make some money. Right. But he's my friend, and he just helped us out. I hate that. I'd rather be able to go, yeah, Todd, we can throw you a couple $100. You mind if I want to be able to respect my people. He's a pro. I'm a pro. So that's a big thing. And the real big thing is there's no difference in the Kickstarter world and like all this stuff between me and you and Joe Schmo who decides he wants to make a comic book tomorrow. Like there is an equal playing field for all of us. And the social media has me locked up just as well as they've got him locked up. I'm not some artist who works for Warner Brothers and I'm already tied into the Facebook system because they've got money into Facebook and they're working with Facebook and they have deals and friendships and relationships, whatever. I'm just some guy who's been fucking shadow banned by the Facebook algorithm because I post about giving peace a chance and hey, let's calm down and conspiracy shit and stuff that they don't want people posting online. So now I'm like, oh no, he might be a Republican and he might be a conspiracy theorist. And like, if you go in and look at my content, they've got me all written up in various ways and it controls how people get my information or if people get it at all. So, it's really a tricky situation, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot of great comics and great people who are
Mhm.
failing, and that's the big deal. It's like when these little books that, it's great, man. It's great that you tried to do a comic. It's cool. I bet you got some feedback. You learned from this, probably the first one that you did or whatever. I've written 100 comic scripts, in my life. I've had, at least 30 or 40 of them published. Probably more than that. I don't know. Probably shortchanging myself at this point. Eh, there's a real difference between people who know how to make comics because they've made comics before, and people who are just passionately trying to make some. And some of them who are passionately trying to make some are doing a great job. They're coming out of the gate and they're swinging and they're doing great things. And some of them who are doing some things not so great, they're doing some things really great. And those people are going to learn and grow, and it's great. And I hope lots of those people who are, in the middle there, get the type of support that they need too, so that they can begin to grow. But establishing a tier of brilliant artists and writers who understand this medium and deserve support at the top,
Hmm.
it's very important. And the only way it's going to happen is people like me. When I see Daniel Warren Johnson, I'm like, man, Daniel Warren Johnson's so great. You should check out his wrestling miniseries. Like
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is. Like paying attention. When Jeff Johns says I'm going to do this Ghost Machine thing and I'm going to try to do it on my own. Fucking hey, go buy Jeff Johns' books. He's fucking awesome. Everything he writes is fucking great.
Mhm.
He's doing it on his own. He's trying to incentivize some of these artists. That we have to, as fans and tastemakers, go and back those people up so that we can create a new comic sphere that
Mhm.
starts with pillars of the industry who know what they're fucking doing, making great shit. That will really help the ecosystem and those mid-tier people. And as they get helped and assisted and little things there and get brought up here. Right now, we've got this kind of just flat system where it's all like just trying to boil up a little bit of attention, and people are kind of hoarding their audiences because they're his book's a little better than mine and their book. We need the audience to begin to pool together in a way where it's easy for them to find the things that are great, because every success indie comics has leads to more success, leads to more people paying attention, leads to the Rippaverse books, which as a gourmand of comic books, I have a lot of critiques for what he's doing. And there are a lot of people who I would rather see have millions of dollars to make comic books, because I know that they know how to do it and they could be making comics on another level. I mean, if Jeff Johns was given this many $1 million for his Ghost Machine brand, that line could really stand a chance to be out, and the people working on it really are stable enough to do whatever. So there are so many great actual comic people who've been doing this so long, it's like the fucking back of their hand. And I'd
Mhm.
love to see those people out. But it doesn't matter. Rippaverse growing up and having a big audience and that's great. That's great for everybody. That helps everything. And it's just so happens that when a new company like Blacklight District Studios comes along and is able to get more light shined upon us, and we are making comics on a little bit of a higher level because we've been making comics a longer time, people notice. They'll notice a difference. And our company will be able to find its place and get the respect that it deserves alongside the other books out there. But that's the thing. We need to keep these growing, these small companies, supporting these
Mhm.
enthusiastic and passionate people. There's a lot of people, like Vaughn. Vaughn's great, man. I really, really like him. He's got a
He's white.
real good
Isn't
attitude.
that a problem these
Yeah,
days?
it is a problem, dude. It's a fucking problem. But
No, you know
but
what's
the
crazy, man,
way
that,
he's
that, that,
been
that we bring
thinking
that
about
up.
these things,
Yeah. It's just the way that we bring
yeah,
that up. People would have a problem with that. Is he all normal white kid raising this much money for his first indie comic book campaign?
yep.
And it shouldn't be. That should be like, yeah, man, that's fucking
Somebody would say
awesome
about
you
it.
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
Crazy.
people would
Mhm.
have things to say about me. I'm D. Snider's son. Shouldn't my dad pay for the? My dad's not a fucking Rockefeller. My mom and my dad have made enough money that they're living comfortably, and I'm
Mhm.
glad. I'm glad my parents are living comfortably.
But you want your own
They don't
stuff.
have
You
all
don't
the
want your
money in the
dad's stuff.
world to.
You want your
Yeah,
own
they don't.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got 4 children. Like I don't have my hands in his pocket. That's not the life of a man on earth. I have to live
Mhm.
my life and I have to do my things, and it wouldn't be right for me to sit there and be just on his teat going, Dad, do everything for me. And I don't need him to. There's no reason. It'd be one thing if I didn't have any fucking talent. I didn't have the ability to do this stuff. I do. The one thing that I don't have the ability to do right now is get as many eyes on what I'm doing as I would like to. If I got 2 million eyes on Fucking for Our Future tomorrow, I truly believe that we'd have $100,000 in the bank immediately. The people finding the book, seeing what it's about, seeing how ridiculous it is, how original it is, it's just a real, we just use this genre as a playground and just kind of like, do a lot of things with it that nobody has ever done before. And it's not dirty and it's not sleazy. It's just silly and fun and cool, like a Warner Brothers cartoon, but something that, you want to hide from your parents and hide under your bed and make sure your kids don't see that you get it, because it seems like it's so over the top and aggressive in its message, but it's just hysterical, what is it like? Absurdist, ultimately in its approach. So, but it's about eyes. So, we have money. I think like $20 a day is being paid right now for ads. That's half the reason that we're doing so good. Ads are everything. The only reason why you know about Lady Gaga, the only reason why you can't stop hearing about Taylor Swift is because millions of dollars is being pumped into making sure you hear her name. Yeah. Every movie, they double the budget for the fucking marketing. $200 million on the movie, $200 million on the marketing. And not that I think that is responsible spending and smart. I think the $200 million on the marketing is probably a good idea, and they could have spent $100 million on the movie, probably, and then have it be better with a better script, if it was more money managed. But what is that saying, though? The more important thing is that it's advertised. Advertising is everything. So what can you do? The one thing that I really believe that you can do, and it's kind of unfair that you can do this, is you can be real and you can be genuine. And instead of going after 1 million people at once, you can go after one person at a time. I could go after Iron Man. Like, I don't know how many guests, you have on your show. I didn't ask you. I didn't say how big's the audience. I said, well, here's one person who cares. If I can convince one person who cares that I care too, and I'm in this with them, and I'm trying to do this same thing, and we're all trying to make comic books great and, have the art form be elevated to the place that we see as an ideal place, where these artists are being honored for the fucking Renaissance people that they are, creating things out of thin air, that other people can't imagine, and like, it's just insane to me how marginalized, it's like with their toys and comic books. Like, no, they're sculptors and artists, man. Like, this is like the people, and they're not drawing people. They're not drawing shit that they see out their window. They're drawing shit from their mind that has often never been seen before. That is so valuable to me, and I hate that mainstream society is still yet to fully embrace and understand the real craftsmanship that goes on in geek culture, and what it is that less superficial people like you and I, who appreciate craftsmen and toys and these things and stuff that other people think is nerdy or uncool, and we go, nah, man, shit is cool. Like, read this comic and tell me how fucking uncool it is. Look at this piece of art and tell me how fucking uncool it is. That's cool, man. You can't draw that shit. You wish you could draw that shit. It's so silly to me. And I really feel like we've let these people bully us to some degree. Like, like we let them make us the nerds and like the uncool. And it's time to just be like, nah, not only am I right and you're wrong, and you've already proven that I was right 1 million times over with all the billions of dollars that you guys spent on all the movies and all the shit based on all my stuff. But I grew up, I'm still playing with the toys, I'm still doing the things, and also still been reading the history books and still been reading the conspiracy books and still been reading all the shit that's going on. And I actually know better about our reality and why it's so dysfunctional because I read. And you guys are too busy trying to fuck each other and follow the stock market and get one up on one another and get that job promotion and all this shit that has nothing to do with immersing yourself in life and in reality and in human experience and in empathetic experiences that key you in to what is happening in your reality. Most people are just having these like singular hustling experiences where they're being like led by their id and shit, and I just think, people who are drawn to science fiction and fantasy, we have more empathetic natures, and we want to read about other people's experiences. We want to try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Playing with toys is like that. The moment you have two toys in your hand and you go punch him in the face, and then you go, oh, he didn't like that, punch you back, but it's, he didn't like that. How did he feel about getting punched in the face? Oh, well, he wouldn't enjoy that. Okay, I punch him back. Well, how does he feel getting punched? Oh, he doesn't feel good about that either. But this is a very simple, this happens. How do they feel about it? That happens. What do they feel about that? That back and forth of how would that make that person feel is what teaches people empathy. And, writers, good writers, people who actually study writing and really get good at this stuff, that's the best gift that you get from writing, empathy. Just really being able to put yourself in other people's shoes. And it's so disappointing, the place that we've come to where I can't write Blade because I'm not black. It's like stupid.
I want to ask you, because you have a campaign, which is crazy. It's just big old titties, because guys like big titties. Where did you come up with the concept, honestly?
Well, I hate nudity on comic book covers.
Okay.
It bothers me because it affects the story. I've done comics where one of my characters, was shown nude, and I literally was sitting there going, how do I add this into the story so that this isn't like this, like it's like a weird image. Like, why is she sitting there with her titties out? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So there's a big market, though, for these erotic books, and these unscrupulous businessmen who are taking over a lot of the Kickstarter comic book space. They're using it. So I was like, I got to, two can play at this game. I got to do the same thing, but I hate it. How do I do this in a way that I like? And it's not even so much morally, it's more like artistically. I don't like it. I feel like it interferes with the art. And I said, well, wait a second. If the nudity was story driven, if there was some basis within the story where nudity was just a part of it, by the nature of the story, when I was showing things on the cover, I would just be showing moments from the book, essentially, and I wouldn't be portraying my character in any way that changed how the audience is looking at them. So pretty quickly I came up with just the idea, the slogan, fucking for our future. Like, as if, because I was just thinking about like sex, and like, because I feel like sex doesn't really have a part in comics, to a large degree. I've never read comics for sex in the first place. I've never been like big on like sexy girl comics unless it's being written by somebody I really like or drawn by somebody I really like. But like, that's not, what do they call those? Like cheesecake? I've never been like a big cheesecake guy. Although I love Frank Cho's artwork. There's certain artists that I like. But like, that I've never been drawn to that. So I started, it kind of started from this place of like thinking about sex as more of like action, like more like fighting, because I'm like, comics need action, comics need, good visuals. I'm like fucking sex. Like, I'm like, what am I really gonna do? I'm like, I don't have like people fucking in my book, what, like, how do I do this in like a way that like in some way that's a little bit more interesting, and making it like it was something they had to work for. And when I thought of fucking for our future, like, what if like the whole human race depended on us having to come together? We have to come together for some reason, and there was like little versions of it that I thought of, initially, of like two warring kingdoms, and like now they got to figure out how to put their stuff aside because we need to procreate and everybody's dying and we're all mongoloids and we, but like versions of a thing of like, what if sex and keeping people together through procreation was somehow important? And then it just all of a sudden just kind of started writing itself as I just started kind of making little jokes about it to my friend and my artist. And I just was like, like, what if on another planet, modern day feminism and modern day anti-feminism basically got their way, and the men and women split up, and the women go up north and they create this utopian civilization, using their sex robots, which had been getting very advanced as the men and women got further and further apart because everybody's not going on dates. They're just using their sex robots. So they reprogram their sex robots and go terraform the other half of the planet, and they make this matriarchal paradise. And then the men go celibate. They get really smart. They crack open their DNA and they turn themselves into these Bigfoots. And they write it into their genetic code that they will eliminate penis envy. Each generation's penis will be slightly larger than the previous generations so that there will be no penis envy ever again. So now, flash forward 1,000 years later, some of the three-legged men's Johnsons have grown so large that they've been forced to move to the oceans and now roam the sea in renewed freedom. And these are the men that they have to collect sperm samples from to try to propagate the female gene, because the girls, their cloning machines have stopped working. So they build a power armor to go into the wilderness to get these big apes. They're animals now, and they haven't seen a woman in 1,000 years, and they don't have any sexual interest in the men. There's a real need, our race is gonna go extinct if we don't get what we need from these men. But the men aren't interested in the women at all. They haven't seen a woman in 1,000 years. So there's two things here. One, it became a Roadrunner cartoon. The men are the Roadrunner who have the sperm that the Wile E. Coyote is never going to get. Because sorry, you should have fixed the problems between men and women 1,000 years ago. You waited too long, and now it's a way more difficult nut to crack than it would have been if you had just figured it out when you guys were one with your society before. So, and that's the whole thing. It's a cautionary tale about like men and women need to figure out how to get along, because if we wait too long, it might get more difficult to do so in the future. But it's this slapsticky kind of thing that doesn't even include any real nudity of the women. The women that is nude is a power armor. It's not a woman. The boobs are exploding, expanding on the cover. It's a power armor. It does all these things. It has all these features to try to attract the men. But the men aren't attracted to any of the things that the power armor has to offer. Or the women, they're asexually reproducing. They haven't seen them in 1,000 years. So it's just this trial and error sort of thing as these women keep going out to the wilderness to try to get a man and get some sperm, and it's not working out. And it's never going to work out. And it's just going to get funnier and fucking funnier as the book goes on. And along the way, because of the premise, there's just so much room for wonderful little commentary on society and various things. The women have a great matriarchal society filled with women, but there's a lot of women in that society acting an awful lot like dudes.
Oh, Tank said he wanted to help you. He said, I want a business email, please. I want to help this dude out.
Yeah, man. I'd love to talk to you, brother. You can write to me at jesseblaze@jessesnider.com, and I'll give you my real email from there.
He also has a Kickstarter right now. If you want to go support that, the link is there. Copy and paste.
Tank does? Go check out Tank's thing.
Oh, sorry. No, you. I meant you. I want to tell Tank you had a Indiegogo.
Oh, me.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah. The Kickstarter's live right now. It's actually funny. We have this ridiculous stretch goal, like for people who have money who want to be drawn into the book in a very unique way. There's a flashback to the scene when Glon breaks up. The men and the women break up. And we show the last president of Glon. And he's got a little thing in front of him that says his name. And for $6,969.69, if you want to invest, you will be the last president of Glon forever. In the book, your name, your face, you are the last male president of Glon. And it's a ridiculous one. We have some like executive credit ones where it's like, you get all the stuff that goes with the campaign, but it's also, we're just basically asking you to give us a little bit extra money because we could use the extra money and we'll put it to good things. At the end of the day, if I make $200,000, it's not going to go into me fucking buying jewelry for myself. It's going to go into me establishing this company. This is what I'm here to do. This is always what I've been here to do. And I need a business, a functioning business that I can be constantly writing and working on things and getting other people working, doing all these things. I've been doing this for a long time behind the scenes at various companies, working with various people like my friend Aaron Sparrow. Aaron was running Boom Studios when they were doing all the Disney stuff and the Muppet stuff. He brought me in for that. That's how he and I got involved. All the Toy Story books that were put out by them at the time, I wrote those. And that's how we formed our relationship, and we had such a cast of creative, wonderful, sweet people who love making comics, who are really good at it. These are the people that we use in all of our books. Aaron's got a book called Kneel Before Doomface, which is going to be coming out in a few months. As I expand, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is hiring Aaron full time. I won't be hiring myself full time. I'm not going to be putting myself on salary, because that's a fucking waste of money. There's plenty of freaking things that I got going on. I need the business so that the business exists, so that Aaron can edit the scripts that they hire me to write. And that's cool. I'll get paid when they hire me to write something. When I get, like, I'll get paid as an employee to do the same things that I'm going to pay people to do covers and pay people to do this work. But I need to have the funds to get this apparatus going. It starts with these independent books that we're doing. The last book we did was called King of Kings. Really, really cool book there. We've got some back issues of it. Actually, I'll give you a link later that we can post in the thing. I have it somewhere. But that one's a really crazy comedy as well, kind of inspired by Life of Brian, Monty Python's Life of Brian. It's religious figures in a battle of the bands to determine the reigning religious ideology. Obviously, King of Kings, Jesus has won every King of Kings tournament every century for 1,300 years. And now the Norse religion is making a comeback because they want revenge on Catholicism for the Northern Crusades. And it's very, very funny. If you're a music fan and if you're a wrestling fan, there's lots of references to that shit. It's a real mixed bag of stuff, but a great comedy comic book. And that was what we raised for last time. And we're going to be doing the second issue of that coming in the next few months. But the next wave of this, after the independent stuff, is licensing. And I've got 3 major licenses that I'm planning on going after that I don't think I'm going to have any trouble getting them. And they're exactly what we need to establish ourselves as a real comic book publisher in the business and be doing some stuff on a regular basis with some IP that people will recognize, to establish ourselves a little bit further. And then from there, I've got a really good plan to create a new world outside your window line of comics that I think can really be the next Marvel, be the next DC, because my approach to it is really about building a world that's a little bit more interesting and a little bit closer to some of the things about this world that we're all investigating and all discovering. And I think that being able to, find a world where Area 51 and things like that we are now realizing are very real, where this stuff is being considered, what the government is really doing is being considered, when people who are becoming superheroes are really actually living in this world and having to consider what's really going on in this nuanced world that we're living on. That sort of world outside your window, I think, would lead to some really amazing stories. And I think that would be the type of place that people would want to spend a lot of time and wouldn't mind seeing teams of heroes come to defend and various stories be told from. The world outside your window approach from Marvel was the game changer that made them overtake DC. And I think everybody just keeps trying to replicate Marvel and DC. But I think it's about creating a new world for people to go to that is maybe a little closer to the reality we're actually living in.
Oh, because you said Aaron Sparrow, and he was at Boom
My best
Studios for a
friend.
bit. I would love to have him on the show. I messaged him on Facebook, actually. I would love to talk to Aaron. Aaron's like a cool
Oh,
guy.
cool. I just connected Aaron with John's Long Box. I'll totally do the same for you. Like I said, Aaron's got a book that he's going to be promoting in a month or two. Kneel Before
Yeah, I
Doomface.
heard about that. Yeah.
I'm sure he would love to come on. It's great. I'm one of his editors. I'm sure I won't be credited or anything, but just reading scripts over the years and offering advice. Or oh no, who knows Aaron? He might credit me because he's a sweet guy. But working on that and just helping him to make it as great as it could possibly be. I would always give him my notes and I'd be like, listen, I'm giving you these notes, but I just want you to understand that I'm not giving you these notes because I'm trying to be a dick. I'm giving you these notes because I just want this book to be the most successful book that you've ever imagined. So, because I love him and he's so damn fucking talented. And better than that, he's just such a wonderful person and he knows how to work with people. I've talked about this a lot. Mine and Aaron, like our group of people that we work with, and it's not because of me. Maybe there's a person or two who's in the group because of me, but the majority of it, because Aaron was an editor, so he's constantly interacting with people, have come from him. Our colorist on King of Kings, this example, our colorist on King of Kings is Andrew Dahlhaus. Andrew Dahlhaus is black. I don't know, maybe Indian. I've never asked him, but not a white guy. Our designer for the book is Erica Tariquez. You might recognize that that's a lady's name and a Hispanic name. Yeah. Our letterer on the book is DC Hopkins, who's a white guy, but that's because we hired Darren Bennett's company, Ad World Design, and Darren Bennett is a black guy who we love, and he's a great dude. And I mean, I hate fucking even saying this. Like, Darren's my fucking friend who makes comic books with me. It's ridiculous that I have to fucking point this shit out. But naturalistically, because we went after the people who we liked and were cool and we clicked with and all this stuff, we have a fucking diverse ass group of people who we work with all the time. And it just happened naturally. They're trying to force all this shit into place. And that is, it's just always a recipe for disaster. It just makes all the freaking art lesser than it could be. And I mean, it's just like everything that I've ever done has been diverse without me ever thinking about it. And when like all these commentaries and all these things started to happen, like me and Aaron like looked at like our stuff and we were like, are we guilty of what they're accusing the industry of? And we were like, no, like not at all. And we're two white guys, two white guys who are best friends and we're working together all the time. And it just so happens the rest of the people around us aren't usually white guys, Sometimes that happens to be the case, but I mean, like, it's so fucked up that we've gotten back to this place where we're thinking about that stuff again and we're talking about that stuff again. I mean, man, I have a dream that my children will one day be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. Fuck, man. We missed the mark, I think. I think the king would be fucking sad.
Well, the last few things I'll ask you. The first one is Boom Studios, as of yesterday, is going to get absorbed by Penguin Random House. It's crazy because you used to work for Boom. Did you think that was ever going to happen, honestly? That we get absorbed by basically a distributor, honestly?
Well, I got scoop behind the scenes. Apparently, they went for real cheap. I hate that company. When I went in there, it was owned by Ross. It was owned by Ross Ritchie. It was being marketing managed by this dude, Chip Mosier. Chip Mosier famously would talk shit about you as soon as you left. As soon as you walked away from the table, as soon as you left the group, he would just start talking shit about you. And you would literally sit there and you would be like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave until he leaves. If I leave, he's going to start talking shit about me. Like, I'm just going to stay here until he leaves. Like, and the first time it happened, who he was talking shit about? Mark Waid. And this was long before Mark Waid had put himself in this position where people don't really like him anymore because of so many things that he's said, online. He's kind of really he's like unfriended himself with the fan base, which is unfortunate because he's a brilliant writer. And I always had a great working relationship with Mark. And half the reason why I wanted to work for Boom Studios was because of Mark Waid. He was doing Irredeemable at the time. He was the editor in chief. He was their figurehead. They were selling. They had credibility as a company because of Mark Waid. Mark Waid was giving them credibility. And I met Mark for the first time at this Boom dinner. I was so fucking happy. I'm writing my first monthly comic. I'm the monthly writer of Toy Story. My first monthly. I was so excited. And Mark Waid's there and I meet him and Mark Waid gets up and he leaves the table and then Chip Mosier starts fucking ripping him apart. And I literally was like, what? This is the figurehead of your company. There's 15 people here who work for this company and you're tearing him apart to them. You're like ruining the thing you have going for you. And then as I was working for the company and started getting the real fucking tea from what was being said in meetings, like Ross Ritchie saying, Jesse Blaze Snider having his name on this book and writing good stories for our Toy Story thing isn't selling any extra copies. We could have Buzz and Woody farting into a jar, and as long as the book says Toy Story on the cover, it will sell the same. And honestly, that was bullshit because they had released my Toy Story story, my first issue, as a free comic book day issue. And it was a great single issue. It was a very good hook. I knew it was going to be in the free comic book day, all these things. I made sure it was fucking phenomenal. It was a great hook. So many people bought that, got that free comic book day edition, and then went on and bought the Boom Studios series. So to say that was real bullshit, because the free comic book day thing, that only works if you deliver something great. And we did. Even, my artist, Nate Watson, who friggin' makes excuses for his art all day long. And I understand, because he was really rushed. So it wasn't as good as he could have done it. And that was the other thing. They were rushing the artists to get these things done. They weren't coming in on model. Disney was very unhappy with so much of the quality of the work that we were doing because of the rushing that was happening and different things that were going on. The only reason why Darkwing Duck was published by Boom Studios was because Aaron suggested it multiple times, and freaking Ross Ritchie fought him and told him nobody's going to give a shit about Darkwing Duck. Nobody's going to. And Aaron's like, I'm telling you, it's a really great property, and it fits in the comic medium so well. If you just give me a chance with this. And he finally convinced him to do it. And then it got done. And it was the biggest fucking success that they've ever had. And then shortly, months later, they fired him to try and cover their asses with Disney. They said, oh, everything that you're unhappy with, it's all Aaron's fault. And they fired him. And Disney knew. They knew that none of it was Aaron's fault. Aaron had been playing both sides, trying to get everything done, trying to make Ross happy, trying to make them happy, and was being honest with him, going, look, this is a little difficult. I'm having some trouble here, but I'm going to get this done right for you guys. The only reason why Disney was hanging on was because of Aaron. So then when Aaron got fired, the joke's on fucking Boom Studios, because Aaron has worked for Disney twice since then as an editor, working on these books for Joe Books, and then another time for another company. And these were like, we were going after the license together. Like, I was helping them to get the licensing. Like, I was supposed to work for Joe Books, except Joe Books never bought the license to the Muppets. They had Frozen, and they got a couple things, but they didn't buy the licenses that I wanted to work on. So I never got around to doing it, but I would have worked for them again. Aaron had worked for them again, and all the people that Aaron was previously hiring and working for, we all left with Aaron. We were so pissed at Aaron. I mean, Boom cut my page rate in half. They did so many things to me, and it was like handled all shitty. And Aaron was the one going, Jesse, I'm so fucking sorry about this, man. This is what we're dealing with. I hate that I have to have this conversation with you. You're delivering such great work for us. I really do believe that these quality scripts make a difference, blah, blah, blah. You're still willing to work, and of course I went, Aaron, I'd do anything. I'd work with you for free, and I did. And when they got rid of Aaron, I was like, fuck these people. Not like, I'm done. What a shitty company they are, literally shit talking the only reason why I wanted to work for them in the first place. They are destined to implode on themselves with this crazy egos being led. And the big thing with Ross is he just wants to be in Hollywood. He has no interest in fucking comic books. He doesn't like comic books. And he's out of the industry now because he didn't fucking give a shit. He never gave a shit in the first place. And I can't stand people who are in this business to take advantage of people like me and people like you, and not people who are in this business to please the people like you and the people like me. Those are the people who should have the businesses and should be in charge. And it's just not the case right now. And we're just dealing with this. It's been like this for forever. And largely it's because the people like us who would be good leaders and would be good shepherds and would be more fair, we usually don't want to lead. Like, I don't really want to be the president. Like, I don't have fucking any desire to do that. Like, but at a certain point, when you know the way and you see that nobody is willing to do it right, there comes a time when you have to become, you have to become the thing. So, like, for me, I'm ultimately really putting myself in a different position.
You said Jesse Blaze or Jesse Snider at Gmail?
Oh, it's Jesse Blaze at jessesnider.com.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the thing is, outside of Keanu Reeves' Berserk and Power Rangers, Boom didn't really have anything else, honestly. Like, what else did they really have? They only had
Irredeemable. That was the Mark Waid shit. They had Irredeemable, and they had the LinkedIn stuff there, and then they had the Disney licenses. So the Disney licenses were big. Disney came, it was Pixar, Disney Prime characters, Pixar characters. After that, after they lost the Disney license, that was like, they managed to get some other licenses because it wasn't known that they had fucked up the Disney licenses. So they played it off like, oh yeah, we're moving on. They weren't really selling, or whatever it might have been, whatever bullshit Hollywood stuff that they said. They could have had an insanity, like what could have been at that company with the Disney stuff. And honestly, the Disney stuff that we did there was great. Anybody who read any of that stuff at the time, the Muppet fairy tale stuff is fun. Roger Langridge's Muppet Show stuff is fun. The Pixar books that we did, some of them are a little simpler and some are better than others. But there's a lot of good stuff over there. The Toy Story stuff's great, even though they really fucked me for the second arc and the third arc, but they're still really good. The voices of the characters are there, and they're fun, and they're well-written comics, and well-made comics. And the Darkwing Duck stuff is great, even despite lots of stuff. And there was a lot of things that we were up against, and we still made some great stuff. And, it could have been even better. And when you get to a certain point, you just go, all right, move over. I'm driving. And that's where I'm at. And, it was like 8 years ago now that I did this. And I literally had Scott Snider and Mike Martz, who was a big editor at DC at the time, he has the company Aftershock. And Scott Snyder's what the top of his thing. He's a Long Island writer. He and I used to go to the same comic book shop. He and I came up at the same time. My first comic book work was published when his first comic book work was published around the same time. Iron Man Noir was like the first thing he did, and I had my Hulk one shot or my Deadpool Marvel Comics Presents, some of my early shit. So we were like reading each other's shit, going, "Oh, great, Long Island boy." Making good, kind of thing, supporting each other from afar. And he very sweetly found me at a convention and like cornered me and went, "Hey, I want to get you into DC. It's like, I've been following your work. I think you're good. And, we come from the same neighborhood and whatnot, want to be friends." And I was like, great. So he and I have been friends ever since, but it didn't matter. He ultimately is just an underling, just like the editors are all just underlings. And when the voice comes down from the top and we're not doing as many books as we thought we were going to do, or we're canceling that thing.
Speaking of Scott Snyder, rumored, allegedly, he's going to be one of the leading people on DC Comics' Ultimate universe they're building up. Do you think he'll be able to do a good job, despite what you just said, with all the editing interference and everything?
Well, Scott's really talented. So, I mean, and I talk about all the time on the thing that, like DEI isn't impossible to do well. They're just doing a terrible job with it. You can actually please the audience while checking all those boxes and doing all those things. You just have to be really fucking conscious of what you're doing, so that you don't fall into any of the traps that make the shit inorganic and unnatural and seem to be just repeating the same pattern and the same trope over and over again. So it's really a challenge because of all the friggin' hoops that they want you to jump through. It was aggravating yesterday when every lead character had to be a white male. That was a problem. And slowly but surely it did start to change, and there were exceptions. You could sell a Black Panther figure and you could sell a Black Widow figure, even though, yeah, in general, though, the female characters weren't quite as popular in general, though, but it wasn't so much that the audience was sexist or whatever. It was just that they were looking for great characters. And, there was more of an audience who happened to be a thing, and so they were gravitating a little bit more towards the ones who seemed a little more familiar or whatever it might be. But there were characters that were crossing over. And similarly, in all the things doing, you can do it and you can make it better. But I don't trust them. I don't trust any of them with the fundamentals. I don't think that. Yeah, it's just, I don't think that they're smart enough to choose someone to be the shepherd and assist that shepherd, but give them the control. A jury of people trying to figure out a universe in this stage of the game, like, you need a John Lasseter heading up Disney. And then Meet the Robinsons is surprisingly incredible, and Tangled is incredible, and Frozen is incredible, and all the Pixar movies that were incredible before them, because there was a brilliant person at the top who knew that Andrew Stanton had talent, and he did whatever Andrew Stanton required to support that talent, so Andrew Stanton could make a great fucking movie like Finding Nemo, and that Brad Bird could make a great movie like The Incredibles, and that Bob Doctor could make a great movie like Monsters Incorporated, et cetera, et cetera. There are brilliant person after brilliant person, but it came from a good shepherd at the top, overseeing and making sure that it was fucking great. That I don't see in place anywhere in the major companies right now. And I'm not shit talking Scott, because I'm not sure. Is that the position Scott's being given? Like, if Scott's being given that position where he really has a chance to do some things to please the
Allegedly,
audience
it's
and
Scott
right the
that's
ship.
going to be on. Scott's going to be on Batman, obviously Court of Owls, obviously. Jason Aaron's supposed to be on Superman.
Yeah.
Kelly Thompson's supposed to be on Wonder Woman. These are the alleged people that are supposed to headline the Trinity for the Ultimate Universe. I hope. I mean, like, I don't want comics to do bad. I want it to work, dude.
They've done this so many times, though.
Mm-hmm.
All-Star Superman, All-Star Batman.
The Earth One storyline they try to work.
Yeah, they've just done it so many times. I feel like even telling me that, there's a part of me that's just like, I just don't care. I don't want to start again.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, like if you put me in charge of this stuff tomorrow, you know, like I'd go back in time kind of thing, and I would like put a timeline together of the great and classic runs of books that sell really well, that everybody agrees are incredible. And I would like kick us off from a point that still mattered to people and give it another go from there. Bring us back to a moment in time that is recognizable to people, because I really think at what's happened right now with the disassociation of the audience is like when I go into a comic book store. I was just in a comic book store today, and I was looking at all the books, and I found myself going, God, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't care. And I can't tell what the fuck's going on. I don't care what the fuck's going on. Like, it used to be that just a glance of the week's comics, you had like a reasonable idea what was going on in the universe and a reasonable idea what was going on in each book. And now every cover seems like some sort of weird nouveau art thing that's like some stilted image that's not showing me any story. It's just some like poster to put on my wall, but it's not cluing me in to what the fuck's going on in the book. It's just like every Harley Quinn cover, it's like they're all the same. You know, there's no progress in what's going on. It's not like, oh cool, so and so's teaming up with so and so now, you know, or anything as simple as that. Even it's just like pop art all over the place. Like, it really just feels like a poster book, you know, thrown up all over the comic book rack, and multiple covers for every book. You know, like no single cover is memorable. No single cover represents the story inside. I feel like the business has really lost me in its approach, and it's hard to get back. You know, like the one thing that I did notice as I was looking through the books was Spider-Man Reign 2, which is Kara Andrews. I don't know if you're into Kara. Kara Andrews is a really awesome artist, and he does a couple of things where he's written, and his writing's okay too. And he's done a couple cool things for Marvel here, there. They let him do like these little miniseries, and his stuff's always really cool. So I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But I was like, this is the type of stuff that we can get excited about. When a creator that we like does a cute little thing that he wanted to do, and they let him do it because he's a creator that people like, and they know they'll sell a couple copies of the book. It's like, that's the best we can do. Like the line-wide thing, it's become something that seems very unfamiliar. I'll say it like this. Toys are sold when there is a property that is evocative. And often these properties will be kind of stupid and not even handled very seriously or taken very seriously. But if the concepts within it, like Masters of the Universe, let's say, are evocative, the people will grab that toy and they will imagine the possibilities that are there and inherent. Star Wars was an evocative brand, which is why it sold so many toys. So many people wanted to play in that world. The Disney Star Wars is not an evocative brand. It does not lend you to your own creative ideas about how to work in that world, because it doesn't really seem to take its mechanics seriously in any way, shape, or form to begin with. So why should I? And if you're not going to think deeply about your thing, I have no reason to think deeply about it. However, go back to the original trilogy, and there's all these tiny little things that obviously thought was put into, and obviously thought was put into this, and people are trying to imagine, trying to figure that out, and trying to figure that out because it was evocative. That part of the game has been completely lost, I think. Like, just making people excited.
And last few things I'll ask before we head out. First thing, you got anything you want to let the audience know about that you're working on coming up the rest of this year in 2024?
Well, my passions are music and comics. So, I used to have a band called Baptized by Fire, which is like a punk metal band back in the day. And then I made lots of music for behind the scenes for television and film and like ESPN, Monday Night Football, NASCAR, shit like that. And I have a new band now called Dilf USA, which is a really cool kind of party band. We're like Steel Panther, but like a punk rock Steel Panther instead of a glam metal. They're a funny glam metal band. We're like a fun and funny punk rock band. And we got a lot of really fun videos that we've been making, producing ourselves. And if you find our YouTube channel, if you're a music fan, everybody will like the stuff. It's just very funny and fun. So it's Dilf USA, and we're on YouTube, and you can find that stuff there. And if you like music, I've released tons of stuff. If you type in Jesse Blaze, wherever you listen to music, you'll find a lot of really great music, I promise. And the big thing though that keeps me in the game all the time is I do 3 podcasts, where I do 4 podcasts every week. I do 2 geek culture podcasts, one on Wednesday and one on Saturday, called Coolest Geek Alive. Coolest Geek Alive, I'm just constantly kind of tearing apart the industry for how they're handling our IP. It's mainly focused on sort of the crossover stuff that, the stuff that we love that is taken by these big corporations and turned into something else. I'm finishing an interview right now. I will come grab you in just a minute. Okay, bye. We on Saturdays, I promote movies and TV shows that I really like, things that are really great that people haven't seen. This is kind of my back door to getting people that are nerds and into nerdy entertainment into comics, because it's a mainstream geek culture show for people who are more fair weather geek culture people. But I am a real geek culture person, and it's all me slowly getting them into what I'm getting them into, but it's a larger audience that I can pull from to to kind of really corrupt everybody and get them into the things that I'm so passionately into. So that's my big thing. Wednesdays and Saturdays I do Coolest Geek Alive, and then every Monday night I do a show called All Your Favorite Bands Suck, which is my favorite bands. Every Monday I do a feature on one of my favorite bands. Start with this album, then listen to this album, listen to these songs, and just not even like sitting there telling you too much about the band, other than they're great, and this is the albums that I love, and these are the songs that I love, and you may love them too. Go check it out. So if you like music, check that out. And then I just started a new one on esoteric information, stuff the Freemason teach, shit that secret societies are teaching their disciples, and the people that control all of our fucking minds don't want you to know. And the show's called Everything They Don't Want You to Know. So wherever podcasts are up, wherever you listen to your podcast, just type in Jesse Blaze Snider and you'll find all this stuff. And then similarly, music, type in Jesse Blaze on my music will come up. And with the comics, Fucking for Our Future, we've got 4 days left. If you know anybody who would dig this, they've been, it's a little hard to get this shit to slide through the system on social media. Tag them or send it directly to them. Text your friends. They will be glad that you texted them. I promise you. The book is really fucking fun, good, unique, and different, and will give them something to tell their friends about something truly unique, truly different, fucking groundbreaking, somebody trying to do something daring and fun in the space, to drum up some attention. People talk all the time about how much they love, heavy metal and the, comic books that fucking push the envelope. Well, here's one. So, if you believe that and you want to see this stuff, be like Tank. Thanks, Tank, for being cool. Go back our book. Tell people about the book. And if you can't back this one, back the next one. King of Kings will be next. If you go to the website for my thing, I'll type it into the comments right here. It's www.blacklight. It's BLD for Blacklight District Studios, STS .com. It's just BLDSTS.com. And you can sign up at the bottom of the page for notifications. It wouldn't let me post it for some reason, but it's BLDSTS.com is our website. And you can sign up for notifications for our future things there, whether it's, you'll be signing up for fucking for our future, but anything that we do after that, we'll send you a notification for it. And we've got a lot more coming. Like I said, there'll be a few more independents probably before we launch any of these license things that we want to do next year, I'm guessing. But there's a lot more where this came from, man. I don't know if you noticed, but I have a passion for this industry, and I'm really kind of tired of not being able to just do this all the time and having to be thinking about so many other things besides what I love to do and what I'm best at, which is making comic books.
Last thing I'll ask you, any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular? Anything else you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, shout out to Master Swag King.
Who's that?
Thanks for having me on the show,
like a white
brother.
Guy.
Yeah. What up, Holmes? Thanks for having me on, Mr. Top
anytime,
G.
Man. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments and who've been listening to this. And I hope you guys will back what we're doing and try to, look, if you don't back me, back whoever you like, really go to bat for them though. They need you to comment. They need you to like things. They need you to subscribe. There's all those little tiny things help all your friends in the algorithms for them having their Kickstarter show up on a thing. There was a comment. You not only did you back it, you commented, or you followed it. You couldn't back it, but you followed it and you commented. There are so many little things that go into the way these stupid algorithms are made. If there's a YouTube channel that you really like, share their thing. When you go onto Twitter and they show you all these stupid conversations that are being had, instead of that, hit search, type in some of your favorite guys, type in Master Swag King and pull up his page and then reshare a couple of his videos. Do that. Because you're already interacting on social media, you're already sharing things, but what do you end up sharing most of the time? Aggravating things that are pissing you off, stupid policies, shit that's bringing you down. Go to the places where the people that you like are doing things that you like and share those things. If that stuff is supported, if more energy is put into our love for things, dude, it'll change the whole world. So, I mean, seriously, whatever you love, and this, fucking for our future isn't for everybody, and that's cool, but help somebody, back somebody up. You really have the power. And the last thing I'll say about it is this. I mean, because it's there's even a comment, beyond the fact that a comment helps you in the algorithms, a comment helps you as a creative person, as a person. I remember going into this store and I saw this kid and he was with his family and he's like a teenager and he was really interesting looking. He had some goth kind of punk weird outfit going on. It was pretty out there. And his haircut, I don't even remember, but it was like this colorful kind of flock of seagulls thing. It was intricate and it was interesting. And I'm an interesting guy who's got tattoos. And sometimes I don't remember if I was wearing my mohawk that day or whatever, but I was cool looking and wearing a cool jacket and whatnot. And I stopped and I went, and I'm 30 or something, and he's 16 with his little siblings and his family. And I go, cool hair, man. I dig it. And I am only there for a moment. But in the moment that I'm there, I see him quietly glance around to all the members of his family. And I get the sense that they've been making fun of him. They've been making him feel bad for looking like this, looking like a freak, doing his hair all weird. And then somebody cool shows up and says, "You're cool." And he went, see, I'm cool. One of my people found me, and they get it. They get it. And that's that. I changed that motherfucker's life that day by changing the entire family's view of him. A cool person from outside the family that they couldn't make fun of said, "No, you're cool." They can say whatever they want. He's now been validated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you can really it's and I didn't know that I had that power. I didn't know that that the thing that I was about to say to him could be really beneficial to him and was maybe important for him to hear because of things that he'd been dealing with his family. But as soon as I saw him look, and and the confidence, he went, aha, this is what I've been, yeah, see, guys?
Yeah.
Like, dude, that comment on that guy's comic about his print that he did, and, you couldn't buy it, but fuck, that's a great image, man, and this coloring is really, really nice, and I'll share it for you. And I don't just share it, I'll share it and I'll make a little comment, because I know that kind of shit will help somebody to actually see it. And then maybe somebody else will buy it. And then I'm helping somebody get a comic book, and I didn't have to spend any money. I just did a nice little goodwill thing, helping one thing, passing along, passing compliments. If you see something, say something, and two, that is also the way that the really great shit will rise to the top. The cream will rise to the top if you start really passionately supporting the ones that you are really passionate about, because the ones that you're passionate about, similar people will be passionate about it. Multiple people will be passionate about it at the same time. And then before you know it, all of a sudden, we're going to start to have a marketplace take shape. And there will be very clear, different, tiers of these Kickstarters that are always going down in a certain thing. And it won't just be this group of friends. It'll be a whole tier of creative people who are able to propagate in a certain region because there's enough fans there to support
there won't be a
it,
need to ask for promotion, because they'll have enough of the pie that they can get to eat for themselves. No need for promotion.
Exactly.
There'll be a big audience for it there. And thank you guys for checking out this episode of the Iron Man podcast. It was great talking to Jesse one-on-one. Hopefully he'll come back later on in the show, later in the year when other things are happening. Obviously,
absolutely,
you can get me in touch with Aaron. Aaron Sparrow.
Oh yeah. Remind me of that on Twitter, and I will connect with that.
Thank you for that. Hopefully you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.